Good evening. This is Gloria Taylor Brown. We'd like to welcome you to the 19th edition of A Gathering of Priestesses. This evening we have with us one of our favorite guests, one of my favorite guests at least, Miss Kathryn Ravenwood, who is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And she's been jaunting about the world, at least the world as far as Nevada, and has a report to us on the rededication of the Temple of Sekhmet. In addition, she's going to be talking about her water altars, which she's famous for, and her book, How to Create Sacred Water. And she's going to reveal just a little bit about her new program, which you're going to be debuting shortly, called 7 Spiritual Directions. But before we get started on that, I wanted to do something because both Kathryn and I usually refer to her as Raven. So if I say Raven, I mean Kathryn Ravenwood, okay? I know there are other Ravens out there, and this is mine.
That's right.
So, but before we get started on that, Raven's sister Janet and her brother-in-law Pete are both in the hospital, and my husband has just come home from the nursing home, and he's not doing very well. He has the beginnings of pneumonia. So before we get started, I wanted us to join together an energy of the people who are present and also the people who are listening in the future, because we are getting quite a few listeners who are watching this show later on, and doing a brief prayer for health. And if you have someone that you need to pray for, I'd like you to take this moment to bring them in as well, and understand that, you know, the power of prayer is one of those things that we know helps people heal. And Janet is, at last I heard, she was in ICU, and Pete, he just had a remarkable number of organs removed, and both of them are, well, they're getting up there in age, and so it's not so easy to get better, and my husband's not getting a lot better either. So for them, for your loved ones who may need to be prayed over, and also for the world in general, including the people in Jefferson, Missouri, and other places who are feeling strain and stress, including the mother and father of the young journalist who was executed in Syria. Let's send out a prayer and let's hold it together that for just a few moments here, and pray to Mother, Father, God, to all that is. We bring to you our sorrows. We bring to you our weak ones. We bring to you those of ours who need healing. And we ask you to look down upon us and with your warm and open hands to reach down and provide us with the opportunity to serve as your representatives as we send healing out into the world, to Janet, to Pete, to Jay, to Jefferson, Missouri, to all the people who have lost someone or may lose someone in a time near, to all those who are suffering, to all those who feel the loss. We ask you that we may be the vessels for your healing, that we may hold them and with our hands and with our eyes and our mouths represent you here on this earth and on this planet, that we may provide them with healing. Amen. Aho Matakweasan.
Aho Matakweasan. Thank you, Gloria.
So, to yes, move on from that and let you know that, you know, this is not going to be a sorrowful event. but I did want to get that. So Raven, I'm going to click on you, and then you'll be up there as long as you're speaking. And then we'll be doing the sharing of the slides, of the photos you took in just a moment. But what I first wanted to talk to you about, and particularly for any of our viewers who maybe didn't see you on the other show, which was number 13, by the way. She doesn't have triskaidekaphobia. Was the with Nicki Scully. We do start still with the question, what drew you to be in the path of the priestess?
Oh, you're asking me this again. All right. Well, I grew up in the Mormon church, and until I was about 17, that's what I focused on. I didn't think there was anything else really in the world, except that I kept asking all these deep, strange questions of my parents, of my Sunday school teachers, and I was always treated like there was something really wrong with this girl asking these questions. And so at that time, I didn't realize that I was seeking for something else, but I was. And then everything fell apart. I went to Brigham Young University. My life fell apart. I had a nervous breakdown. I was not happy. I knew this was not the path for me. I took off and went to Big Sur, California, because I listened to Johnny Rivers' song on the Realization album of going back to Big Sur, and I thought, well, that's what I need to do, is go find me some trees and some water and figure out what's going on. And I walked into a major counterculture in 1969 in Big Sur, California, and my whole life changed. I did take psychedelic drugs, which gave me an expanded consciousness, and I saw things, and it took me 20 years to figure out what to do with it. I didn't want to do the drugs, but I wanted that connection. I wanted to be able to understand why I could look up at the cosmos and know that it was alive and breathing, and there was something far bigger and far better. And so I started searching. I didn't know anybody. In 1969, of course, the women's movement was huge. I didn't know anything about that. So I went to books. I read everything J. Krishnamurti wrote. I didn't understand hardly any of it. I just kept reading it and reading it. I got into the Theosophical Society's books, didn't understand it, read it and read it. And I just kept searching and reading until I was about 40. Then I started to meet other people who were also looking around. By the time I was 50, I was really in my priestess role. I was a pipe carrier. I was in women's circles. I was involved with women's programs. I was doing work for I was doing my water altar work. I was heavy into the circles, women's circle work. And I was finding out that the ceremonies and the rituals gave me a way to participate and to come forward instead of just reading my books. I was also a massage therapist at that time. I lived in Seattle, and they were good times because I finally connected and found out that I had that role that I was looking for all those many, many years ago when I was 20 years old. That I finally had found the path and could participate with the universe in the way that I had always wanted to do. I also was reading tarot cards, which my first husband taught me how to read and told me I was never going to be any good at. So thanks, honey. I learned from you. And I love the tarot because there was such wisdom there for me. That was where I started to really find a lot of my answers. And so I pursued that more and more, and when I gave up massage therapy, I went full-time, as much as possible, into reading cards, continued my study, tarot, Kabbalah. If it's interesting, I read it. Then I was also introduced to Egyptian mysteries, started studying with Nicki Scully, and that opened a whole new vista in my mind and in my heart. I've been to Egypt twice, once with Gloria. Both times Nicki was on the first time Nicki led the tour, the second time she was on the trip with us. And so Egypt became a huge part of my life. And doing ceremony in the temples of Egypt, if you don't think you're a priestess by the time you finish that, oh, you are a priestess. Right, Gloria?
Right, right.
So that's a nutshell. I mean, wow. We're talking about the last 45 years of active exploration, but I'm 65 now, and I think I figured out when I was 15 that there was something a lot more that people aren't telling me about that out there, and so I was trying to figure out what it was.
Yeah, well, you know, the blessing is that we live in a time where we are actually able to find those books or find that information. I mean, the children that are now, the information that is available now, just crystallinks.net. If you've never been there, go there. Yes. Has thousands and thousands of pages. There's books on the Gutenberg program and the Gutenberg project, and then also on there's a spiritual list of books that are books that Raven or I would have had to go and study in, I don't know, Oxford or somewhere in order to be able to access them. And not only can we see them, we can see them the way that they originally looked, not somebody's transcription of them. But if you wanted to know it, you can actually look at the book, and you can look where, you know, maybe somebody underlined back in the 1600s. Wow. You know, there was one that was, you know, Sir Isaac Newton was actually an alchemist. And that was what he regarded himself as primarily. Before he, scientist was sort of down on the list as what he was concerned. And there was one book that came from his library that was a book from the 1400s. And the idea that Sir Isaac Newton had underlined this book on alchemy. Wow. And, you know, and now I think that was actually in the Google Book Project. Now we can actually look at it on the internet and study it and have access to it. Is really incredible. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with studying books. There's a wealth of knowledge and wisdom there, and both Raven and I have we spent many lifetimes as librarians, so I know that we've spent time working on those books and keeping them and maintaining them and protecting them and probably dying for them.
You know, it's funny, the first time I really understood what reincarnation could be, my very first thought was, whoa, I could come back and get my books back. Not, how's my karma? Have I been good? Who was I in the past life? Who am I going to be? It's like, I get all my books again. I was so excited. How am I going to figure that out? How will I leave them in one place so I can find them the next time?
Yeah, I'm going to give myself a list. You know, these are the books you have to have.
That's right. You know, can I bury them someplace and I come back and find the map and go dig them up or something? You know. And that was hysterical. It's like, oh my God, I could. Then I started thinking, oh well, maybe I have this other responsibility of reincarnation and karma and all this. It's like, well, that was secondary. I just wanted my books.
Well, Raven recently came over and took care of me while I had my knee replaced, and while she was here, she reorganized all my books. Went through them and sorted them out and put fiction with fiction and metaphysics with metaphysics and alphabetized them, and I think my books are still in shock. So anyway, but to move on and to start, I wanted to give you an opportunity to take a look at what Raven saw whenever she went to the Sekhmet temple, which was that last weekend?
It was August. The ceremony was August 9th.
Okay.
So now it's already the 21st.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It surely does.
So I'm going to run the slides, and Raven's going to tell us what we're seeing and what happened to her at the event. And so let me start the screen share here. What I found out last night when I was fooling around with this a little bit is that I can't actually do a slideshow. If somebody knows how to do it as a slideshow, instead of doing it as where I've got to click through it, I'd really appreciate it if you'd contribute that knowledge to my my wisdom here, because I don't know it. Let me make sure that we've got the whole thing here. And so, Raven, you want to tell us what we're seeing here?
So, as you know, this priestess telesummit that Gloria's been doing is based on the book Stepping into Ourselves, an anthology of writings on priestesses. And Ann Key and Candace Kant are the editors. Well, Ann Key lives here in Albuquerque, where I live. And so we finally met each other, and I've been going to circles at her home and enjoying her. And a couple months ago, I was over there, and something prompted me to bring some of the rose petals that I've been saving for months and months, and asked her, I said, I don't know, I don't like to impose on other people's ceremonies, but if we're doing this ceremony outside, would you want to use these rose petals? And she said, well, it's very windy, we're going to stay inside, but I'd love to take them with me. In August, I'm going down for the rededication of the new statue of Sekhmet at the Temple of Goddess Spirituality, dedicated to the goddess Sekhmet, which is in Cactus Springs, Nevada, outside of Las Vegas. And I knew about it, and I said, oh, that's great, you know, sure, I'll bring you more. And she said, well, why don't you drive down with me? And I said, absolutely, thank you. So she and another woman named Veronica Iglesia and I drove down from Albuquerque, drove down to Nevada, and Anne was the priestess of this temple for 3 years. So it's very dear to her. And some of you probably know the history. Someone stole the statue that had been in that, of Sekhmet, that had been in that temple, and it hadn't come back, so a new statue was provided for, and there was going to be a very large ritual and rededication ceremony at the temple. And I had never been there, and I was very excited. So this is the day, Saturday, and I can't remember what this figure on the ground is called. It's a rangalan or something, this mandala-looking figure. And Veronica did that out of flour. And those are the rose petals that I'd been saving for months and months that were scattered on the pathway that led up to one of the temple doors. The temple has 4 doors, and it's all open to the outside. So that was the pathway leading up to being able to come into the temple for ceremony. So next. And this is a little close-up. I have many orchids, as those of you on Facebook know I do. They're my babies. And every time the flowers drop, I save them and I put them on my altar, giving them to Sekhmet and to Hathor. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I just put them all in with the roses, and I walked by and looked down and saw this beautiful little dried orchid flower laying there on the ground. It just made my heart so happy to know that this had been laying on my altar, and now it was on the great altar of the temple outside, leading up inside. So go ahead, Gloria. This is the temple of Sekhmet, and it's very beautiful. I'm sure you can go online to study more about it and learn its history and see lots of beautiful pictures of it. But it's not very big, and this is the ceiling open. The roof is open, and you can look up through this beautiful lotus ceiling. Right below that is a large fire pit, so that you can have a fire in the temple. Yep, click. And there is Sekhmet. And when you walk in, she's, of course, seated, and unless you're very tall, she's taller than you are. And those are live papyrus plants. And as you can see, she doesn't have very many offerings around her just yet, but she'll have more later. There's a close-up of her beautiful face. And these are her feet. Now you can see the offerings are starting to show up. And when I saw her statues in Egypt, her feet so intrigued me, and I love them so much. So Obviously, other people did too, and I had to take a picture of her feet. This is more offerings of flowers, and showing the papyrus again. And here she's called the Lady of 10,000 Names, which is one of Sekhmet's names. And during the ritual, about 3 or 4 pages of her names were read aloud. So it was really incredible to hear all of her beautiful names being spoken. This is a bigger picture of her as the offerings were accumulating. At one point, we had dark-colored drinks, such as grape juice or pomegranate juice, that were poured at her feet as a libation during the ritual as well. People love Sekhmet. And that's a picture of me with Ann Key. We're standing outside a little pavilion area in the parking. There's a big ceremony. There's a big gathering grounds where you can have many people can have dinner or a meeting. And so these flags, and I'm sorry I don't remember the woman's name, she sends these flags all around the world to gatherings. And people put them up, and then when they're finished, they take them down, package them up, and send them to where they've been told to send them the next time. So the flags are beautiful, and there's a lot of energy with them. So on the left is, in the blue, is Nut, Sekhmet in the middle, and Ma'at on the right. And then around the corner on the right is Taret. And I can't really see who the left is. And these are 3 beautiful priestesses. On the left is Abby McBride, who is the priestess of one of the big circles in Las Vegas. She's a singer, a drummer, there are dancers. I think they're a fire dancing circle. In the middle is Nicki Scully, who came down and taught a beautiful workshop on Friday night at the home of the woman on the right, who's Caitlin Breen, who is a wizard of incense and oils. And it was just, the women who were at these rituals were all so high-powered, so intense, so they've been doing these kind of things for so long. And they were so beautiful, so loving, so cooperative, not an ego flare among them. And there were about 40 of us. And it was an absolutely amazing coming together of priestesses really serving their purpose. This is taken from inside the temple, looking out on the gathering grounds. This was actually taken Sunday night when we were getting ready for a large potluck.
So the Vegas Vortex is Abby's group.
Oh, thank you.
And you want to talk a little bit about the evening, the all-night long ceremony that you held?
All-night long ceremony Saturday night was absolutely amazing. Like I say, there were 35 or 40 women there. That particular one was women only. Since red is the color of Sekhmet, most everybody wore red. I didn't have any red, so I had to do the best I could. I can't tell you everything that happened at the ritual because it was so going off into another place and there was so much going on. They did open her mouth and open her eyes and enlivened the statue through ritual. We honored her, we blessed her, we praised her names, we sang to her, we drummed to her, we made offerings to her, we burned incense to her. We cried, we prayed to her, we chanted. This went on all night. I finally went to bed about 2 in the morning. People stayed awake in the temple all night tending the fire. And then at sunrise, I just missed the sunrise ceremony. I came out a little before 6 and had just missed it. But they did hold space in the temple all night long. And when I came out in the morning, this was the moon setting. And very, very large sky there on the desert. And the rays of the moon were coming up and going out. This is behind the temple and behind where we were staying. So the rays of the moon were actually coming up, going across the sky towards the east. This is west. They were going east towards the rising sun. If you'll click on that, Gloria. And this is sunrise a little before 6, and that is lightning in those clouds. And as you see, the cloud looks almost exactly like a pyramid there in the middle. On Sunday night during the potluck with the full supermoon that came up, at one point there was a cloud over the moon that looked exactly like a lion's face, and everyone noticed it. And so the elements were extremely responsive. Sekhmet was very responsive. We had lightning, we had thunder, we had rain, we had sun, we had clouds. It was amazing. It was like Sekhmet showed up and was so present in all the elements being with us. I don't think I've ever seen lightning at sunrise before. And this is, I understand it's not exactly on the same property, but we're allowed to go over there. This is a spring that is right next to the temple. And on Monday, after almost everyone was gone, there were 5 of us who walked over there, and we conducted a water ceremony here, singing and praying for the water. I brought the water from my water altar that I keep here in Albuquerque, and we each made offerings to the spring, asking for the water to be healed. There were dragonflies. As soon as we started praying and singing, the dragonflies showed up, and they did not leave. Giant red ones, big, huge blue ones, little blue ones, and they were all over the place while we were doing our ceremony. We laid out an altar, we had rattles, we had drums, we sang, and these were amazing women, and no, there were 4 of us, I'm sorry, there were only 4 of us, and everyone offered prayers and sang in their own way, and then they would pour a bottle of my water altar water into the spring and offer prayers of healing. We had a 5th bottle, so what we did was I slowly poured the water into the spring as each person called out the name of a specific body of water that needed healing. And we just dribbled that water in and kept calling out names of places, of bodies of water for healing. It was very hot that day. One of the women walked all around singing. We had lots of sage. We were there for a long time doing our prayers and singing and offering our heartfelt energy and this water altar water to the spring for its healing and for the healing of all waters everywhere. This was Sunday night, again, as we came down for the big community potluck and outside ceremony where amazing women spoke. Oh my goodness. I don't know that I've ever been in the company of such a group of such talented, amazing women that spoke that night. This rainbow went clear across the sky, and then, by gosh, it turned out to be a double rainbow. And you can see over there on the right how it's illuminating the rocks on the right. It was very close and very, very beautiful.
So, because of the water spring, I think it's time for us to talk about, since you are the water priestess, all water priestesses.
Yes,
She's also a tree priestess, but we'll do tree priestess on some other show. And Raven, if you would introduce your book, and if you wouldn't mind, I need to go in the other room for just 1 minute. So
all right. Okay.
You got it.
Down, right?
You've got it. You're up.
All right. So Gloria said to hold this up by my ear, so I only see myself as a little picture in the corner. This is my book published by Inner Traditions, Bear & Company. It was printed, it was released in 2012. It's called How to Create Sacred Water, A Guide to Rituals and Practices. This is my heart book. Back in the mid-90s, Hurricane Floyd ravaged North Carolina. And when I say ravaged, I mean it ravaged it. It came through only, I think, when it made land at Cape Fear. I think it was only maybe a level 2 hurricane, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it did a lot of damage, and it flooded many, many, many waters in North Carolina. And later the next day, early in the morning, the waters converged and everything started to flood. And the floodwaters went right through the factory farms. Millions, and I'm not kidding, millions and millions of chickens, pigs were washed out of the factory farms, their bodies just floating through the waters. The floods also took out the sewage lagoons, isn't that a charming way to say it? Took out the sewage lagoons for these factory farms, and millions of gallons of waste from these animals flushed out into the rivers. Not just animal waste, but all the hormones they take, all the pesticides from the food they eat, all of the medicines, what do you want to say, that try to keep you from getting sick. All of those medicines that had been given to the animals, all the hormones, all of that flushed into the water. Well, this is all happening, and I'm walking around pristine Green Lake in Seattle, Washington, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm saying, I wonder how much is too much before the water system can't handle that kind of pollution anymore. And a little voice right here said, you know, you could make a crystal homeopathic elixir that would heal the waters of Gaia. And I had no idea what that was. And I thought, well, all right, let me see if I can do a little research. I'd had a computer for a while, not too long, and I went online and I kind of looked at crystals that heal water, and you know, a few things came up about making crystal elixirs you could drink, or the qualities of different crystals, but I didn't see anything like this, what I thought it was about. So I thought, well, if Spirit really wants me to do this, Spirit will show it to me. So I didn't know what it meant, but I knew what homeopaths were. I had taken homeopaths for about 10 years, and I knew that homeopathic remedies were the essence of something. So maybe if you have poison ivy, they take poison ivy, put it in probably water, stir it, stir it, stir it, stir it, stir it, and change the water, stir it more until you finally, after all of this stirring, are left with the essence of what that plant product or mineral, whatever they put in the homeopaths are. Then they take that liquid and put it over the little white pellets we know about, and we take those. And they either work or they don't, but they're pretty powerful. And they've been used in Germany since the 1800s. So I knew about homeopaths, and I thought, all right, I know what that is, but I don't know what this crystal stuff is. So on a very, so far, uneventful day in Ballard, Seattle, I took a break from massage and walked the couple blocks over to the little shopping area, went by an antique store that I visited all the time, and Spirit said to me in a very loud voice, you know, you could go in there and see if there's any crystals in there. And I've been waiting all this time to be explained, what is this crystal homeopathic elixir I'm supposed to make? Instead of going, oh, thank you, Spirit, let me go do that, I stood outside and I said, well, there aren't any crystals in there, as I'm standing on the sidewalk arguing with Spirit. Well, you could go look. Yeah, but I'm in there all the time. I've never seen a crystal in there. And then Spirit said, go look. So I went running inside, and just drawn to a huge, beautiful display case was a big hunk of amethyst about like this. Never seen crystal in there before or since. There was also a piece about a white crystal about this long and about this thick. I had no idea what it was. I bought the amethyst. I looked at the white one, left it, took the amethyst, went back to my clinic, and started to wash it to get the dust off of it. And I'm like shaking. It's like, oh my gosh, Spirit is leading me on this treasure hunt. And I heard this voice say, why didn't you get the wand? And I thought, wand? What wand? Go back. So I go back. I look at this other crystal like this again, and I think, well, that's not a real crystal. No, this is a very sketchy kind of antique store. It's probably a piece of plastic. I'm not buying plastic. So I went back, cleaning the crystal. Why didn't you buy the wand? Go back. So I go running back again, and the poor clerk thinks I'm insane. I buy the crystal. I take it back. So I'm really shook up now. I'm running water over the amethyst out of the faucet. And all of a sudden, I feel this purple water going into my hands, coming up my arms, and going through my entire body. I've never felt anything like this in my life. And I'm watching the color come right out of the amethyst. I'm watching the water pour right through me, and it's totally filling me. And I thought, okay, something's going on here. So, thank you, Spirit. I go home. I don't know what else to do. I don't get any instructions for a while. But I just started listening to that gut feeling you get. And eventually what I was told was, you're going to make a water altar. It's going to be a crystal homeopathic elixir to heal the waters of Gaia. Huh. So I look up, I start taking my little crystal around, and I'm asking, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Well, I finally took it up to East West Bookstore. Hey, it's selenite. So, okay, now I know I've got amethyst and selenite. And the selenite is my wand to do the stirring with. So my friend Starfeather gave me one of her old punch bowls from her wedding that she never used, dug it out of her garage, which was a perfect fit for the amethyst. I filled it with water, and I would stir it and speak my prayers over the water. And then I'd put a silver tray, which was left over from one of my wedding presents that I never used, on top to protect it. And I was told I was going to keep this from full moon to full moon. Well, hey, I'm a Cancer born on the full moon. That's pretty easy to do. And after the first cycle of this, I prayed over it all the time, and I had visions. I had all these things happen to me. Okay, it's time to take the water out. What am I going to do? Well, I'd been saving, plastic bottles. That's all I had. Spirit said, make a label. I didn't want these labels that, Dasani or whatever, or barcodes on my sacred water. So I designed I took purple paper and I wrote things all over it. I wrote affirmations. I love you, water. Thank you, water. One of the prayers I got was, thank you, water, for your gift of life. I see you clean and restored. So I would put all of that on there, cut them out, and I pasted them onto the water bottle. Then I would take them down to the river, the streams, the sound, wherever I was. There's a lot of water in Seattle. And I would pour them out and offer my prayers to the water and send it out there. And I did this over and over. I started sharing the water with my friends. I took it to my friend Starfeather's planetary healing circle where I was praying. And I went out one night, and one of our friends, Maria, had been in Japan, and she came back with this book. And she said, Ravenwood, you're not going to believe this. Look at this book. It's like, okay, Dr. Masaru Emoto, and it's in Japanese. I said, okay, what is this book? She said, inside this book, and she could read Japanese, is the story of this man who took these water samples and froze them. And you all probably know the story of Dr. Emoto. He would take a sample of distilled water and see what it looked like, and then he'd put another sample of the same water in a bottle and make a little label that said things like love, hate, I want to kill you, I love you, all kinds of things. He did Mozart, he did rock music, he did heavy metal, he did Chopin. And then he would look at how the crystals looked. He would freeze them and photograph them. Astounding. And she said, Ravenwood, this is what you're doing. And I thought, oh my gosh, validation. I'd never done anything like this on my own. I'd gone to workshops, I'd studied, I'd done rituals, I'd done what other people figured out. But this was mine. And nobody showed me, and nobody told me, and we all just cried. And so this went on. This has been going on ever since Hurricane Floyd happened, and the same amethyst is in the same punch bowl. It has never gotten gunky or algae or any kind of problem, even when I admit sometimes I'm not a good priestess and it sits there for more than a month. It has never gotten bad. The selenite, I found out, melts in water, so I quit leaving the selenite in the water. I leave it on the top, and I stir and stir and stir with it. So many, many prayers have gone into this water, and then I continue to take it to wherever I am where I can offer prayers for the water. The first time I went to Egypt with Nicki was right after 9/11 happened. In those days, you could still take water on the plane with you, so I took it with me on the plane. Nicki and I did ceremony at Philae, at Isis's temple at the Nile. And we were sitting together at the Nile praying and putting this water in. And when we got finished, we turned around and there were two armed guards, and I mean machine guns, standing behind us. They'd been guarding us the whole time. We put the water in the Red Sea. It's gone all around the world. People have taken it out swimming with dolphins and offered it to the dolphins. Gloria and I were up outside of Seattle. What's that pass we went to? Where the really cool, the big Deception Pass. We were standing up on the cliff, and this huge misty cloud was like on the top of us, and it looked exactly like a dragon. And so we threw the water in the air and offered prayers to the water dragons and let it float out over the sky. We had a great time. So that, in essence, is how I got into this water altar priestess stuff.
So let's see your book again, and let's make sure people know the title.
How to Create Sacred Water, A Guide to Rituals and Practices, published by Inner Traditions, Bear and Company.
And it is available on Amazon, and it's also available from Raven, and it's also available from Nicki's Hathor's Mirror website. So there's no excuse for not buying one.
If you order it from me, it will cost more than Amazon, but I'll sign it for you.
Oh, well, that'll make it more valuable.
And I'm down to one copy. I've ordered more from Inner Traditions. All the ones I had stayed in Nevada. You can't see it on here. I was a finalist in the 2013 Southwest Book Awards. So this came in second behind a book on Mary Magdalene. So it is a winner in the Southwest Book Awards, which is New Mexico and Arizona, and it was in the New Age category. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it, and you're getting better at that story every time you tell it.
Well, it's funny. I always think, do people really want to listen to me? But evidently they do. And it's a very beautiful story, and it's very close to my heart. And there's pictures in here of Egypt, and there's a lot of stories about myself, about how, as a little Mormon girl in Wyoming, how I became attached to things like rocks. And back in those days, I could walk out in the prairies alone and be gone all day long with not a soul around me. And I would take the sagebrush off the plants and rub it all over me, up and down my arms, my hands, and then I'd fill my pockets with it. And I'd keep all this sage around me. I collected rocks. I begged my mother to take me up the rock shop so I could spend my allowance and bring crystals home. And one of the interesting things is I used to bring all these rocks into the yard from the alley, and then I'd pour water all over them and see how they changed when I put water on them and hold them. I used to put them in my mouth so I could taste them. And so, little Mormon girl in Wyoming ended up being a priestess of Isis, priestess for the trees, priestess for the waters.
Well, that's a lovely story, and in a way, that is a really good segue to where we can talk about your new project, which we will be debuting shortly. Raven is, as you can tell, a consummate teacher. She loves to teach. She loves to train. I have co-taught with her. We have co-taught from Seattle to Albuquerque, and probably in Egypt, and we will probably co-teach many other places. We work very well together. So she has created this project all by herself. It's not mine. It's all hers. And a couple of years ago, she told me that she had this project that she was going to do over a period of time, and it was going to be very deep, and she wasn't sure how it was going to come out. And so we discussed it and discussed what she was doing, and sort of that. And then I started to do this project, and I said, that that project you did, that would be a really good online program for people, because she's already done it once. She's got all the material created, and I said, well, why don't you just create it as an online program? Well, Raven knows that I'm a bit of an overachiever. In fact, we were dealing with my OCD earlier when we were dealing with the slides. Yes, they did all have picture frames and shadows. And, you know, but Raven's actually exceeded my ability whenever she managed to create this. And so I'm going to let her talk a little bit about how it happened and where it came from and what it is.
All right, thank you. As I mentioned, I'm a pipe carrier, which is a private thing for me. Over the years, I have had small ceremonies where I offer the pipe. It's a women's pipe. It is not. I am not Lakota trained. I'm not native trained. My tradition came from Evelyn Eaton, who was Paiute trained, but she was a white woman. And my sacred pipe came to me through my women's circle. And I've been carrying it since I was 50 years old, so about, well, maybe a little before I was 50, so 15 years or so. And praying with the pipe is praying to the 7 directions. When I started praying to the 7 directions, and I also have, for many years, I've had a whole room that is an altar room that is set up to the directions. So I sit in my altar room, and I can pray to the 7 directions with altars created for each of the directions. It's very powerful. And so I've learned a lot about altars as doorways. I've learned a lot about the directions as doorways, as gateways, and about who and what lives behind those doorways, and how when you open the doorway and it becomes a two-way thing, so they can come in and you can go out. This is very helpful because when you learn the spiritual directions, north, south, east, west, above, below, center, you understand the archetypes and the guides that live with them. And so you are able to, when you recognize, hey, I'm in a West Gate situation, I'm overly emotional, I can't seem to, you know, stop crying, or, you know, I'm entrenched in trying to let go of so much in my life. How much do I have to let go of? Are you kidding me? One more transformation? What is this about? Oh, I might be having a West Gate lesson. Then you know you can turn your focus on the West Gate, get in there, and call in the guides you need to help you with these situations in your life. So this has been very important to me, these spiritual directions. And this is something I've done, well, all of this began in the mid-90s for me, about really understanding it. Even though all those times in Wyoming when I would lay outside and look up at the stars, I slept outside every night in the summer as a child by myself with a sleeping bag. I got to go camping. I knew the mountains. I could drink out of freshwater streams. Of course, I had all my rocks. I collected lizards and kept them in the window wells of our house, drove my poor mother crazy. And so I knew about all these things. I just didn't know how to put them together. And I wanted to be able to teach this to people because it had been so incredibly powerful for me. So in 2007, I offered this class. It's called Spiritual Directions, A Path of Initiation. And 7 people signed up. We started in January. We finished on July 7th, 2007, 7 people in the class. And we spent a month between each direction because I wanted the people in the class to interact with the direction during the month. I didn't want them to go home and go, oh yeah, next week, yeah, we're doing that one. It was homework. It was life work. It's soul work. And the next month would come together and I'd say, well, so how was this month? And everybody had these amazing stories about what happened to them that was related to that direction. And they would all be the same. When we did the South Gate, they all unbelievable, for instance. So it was a powerful course, and I would spend the month doing it with them. because I'd never taught the course before either. And I'm also waiting for the guides to download me with the spirit journeys, with the information. And I remember before one of them, it was the day before class, and they hadn't given me anything yet. And I was pretty panicked. I've been doing everything I could, begging, pleading, rituals, offerings, nothing. No info. And so in desperation, I went to Lowe's. I was building a little patio with patio blocks, and I have this huge cart in Lowe's filled with bags of sand and these stacks of patio blocks, and they start downloading me in the middle of Lowe's. And I remember I looked up and I said, "So now you give it to me?" And some poor guy, with a hammer sticking out of his pocket looks at me, and I'm like, "Oh, you're in Lowe's. You can't talk like this in Lowe's." And they said, "Oh, don't worry, you'll remember it." And so I came home, I remembered it, frantically typing it all out. So this was a very interactive class, not only from the students, but for me as well. So Spiritual Directions, A Path of Initiation, starts out with a spirit journey taking you to your etheric altar or sacred circle. This sacred circle, because we build altars for each of the directions, so it could be a small altar, it could be a huge medicine wheel. Mine looked more like a medicine wheel. It's where you go to do the work. It's not in your house, it's not in Gloria's house, it's not in my house. It's your spirit sacred circle. And you learn to journey there. So the first time you go, for my students, it turned this way. This is what I was told it would be, and that's how it worked for them. At first it was just kind of a blank circle. And then each month we would open one of the gates. So for the west, we would open the gate and we called in Bear. And Bear would come through the gate. And the water would come through the gate. And depending on what all we talked about and did, these things came through the gate. And they anchored in the sacred circle. And the west gate, open. Then we would do the north. We called in Buffalo. We called in the ancestors. We called in the mountains and the snow. The north gate would open. All that comes in. It anchors in your sacred circle. So the next time you go back to it, you walk in, you walk around the circle. Oh, there's the west gate open. All that stuff is there. All those people are there, all around the circle. So that by the time we did above and below, you have a very full circle. All the gates are open. Many guides are there. Many lessons are there. Many gifts are there. And when I do spirit journeys, I always offer gifts to the guides at the end. And they always give you gifts. That's the way we do it. By the time we come to the center, everything gets woven together in the center, and Grandmother Spider does that. And so we have big, major spider energy for the center that weaves everything together. So by the time you're done, you have learned only the basics of the directions, because there's no way I can spend an hour calling in the directions, and Gloria knows I've done that many times. There's so many layers to them all. We have a very basic beginning. And then also in the course, I give you about a page of journal opportunities that are related to that direction. So you have things to maybe write on, work on, activities to do while you're working with that gate. You might spend a month in between, you might choose to spend a week in between, or you might come back to them later, but we have journal opportunities in there that give you a chance to explore through writing, through art, through experience, through meditation, other ways that you can connect. And the energy of the gates is going to be very specific to what is going on for you. The main guardians are always there. What's that?
Nothing. It's just you froze for a moment.
Yeah, we're freezing a little bit here. The guardians are always there. The energies are always there. The archetypes are always there. But they layer down so much. And they'll be very specific for what you need. So at some time you might go through the south gate and expect coyote, and you might get Sekhmet instead. Or you might get swan, or you might get mouse. You might get a lesson on relationships. You might get a lesson on power. You might get a lesson on, the great old mirror, how you look at people and see all the things in them you don't like about yourself. So it depends on where you are, what you need to do, how you're asking. But this class teaches you to be in relationship with the guides, to be in relationship with these directions. Nutshell.
Okay, so as we said, We are sort of debuting the course in this video tonight. We will be doing a full hour introduction class, which will be separate from a gathering of priestess. I've decided that I just don't like the idea of selling within this framework. It feels wrong to me. And I want this to be pure training, pure video, and that whenever we are offering a project, and we're going to be offering a number of projects, and we've got another project which is an astrology project from Andrea Goodman that's coming up that is incredible. And I believe Rabbi Jill Hammer also has a program that we're going to be offering, and we have a program from Pam Eakins that we're going to be offering. But Raven's program is going to be the first one we offer, and that's going to be an introductory program. You will get an email about it. You'll obviously get a Facebook listing. We'll have a Facebook page for, as I had to go in and get the domain name. It's now 7 Spiritual Directions. Spiritual Directions was taken. So you will get some information on it, but I wanted Raven to let you know just a little bit about it tonight. And whenever she does the introduction, she'll also do a couple of journeys so that you can get the feeling for what it is that she does. Raven is absolutely gifted, and if you get her, I'm frozen again, if you get her water altar book, in there are a number of journeys that you can read, and I keep nagging at her that I want her to put those into audio, and maybe that'll be our next project. But
there also is a very detailed section in the middle on how to create an altar. Everything, from how to go out and talk to the sage plants about if they're willing to be sage and smudge for you, to creating an altar, to maintaining an altar, to if you decide you don't want to do this anymore, how to take an altar apart and be done with it, how to clean it. And believe me, when you have an altar room like I do, it takes multiple days just to clean the altar, and how, let alone rearrange them or make new altars. So there's a very detailed section in the middle of the book for people who have never done an altar, so that you can be guided through that.
Now, you don't have to have a whole room in your house.
No, you can have a very small altar.
You can have an altar can be a cup of water, a crystal, a feather, a candle, on a little piece of napkin, if you want it to be.
That's right.
Or it can be like Raven's and take over your entire third bedroom.
That's right.
Well,
that's not my fault. They told me they wanted it.
Yes, well, we'll tell that story again when we do the introduction.
But remember that an altar is a place of focus, and it is the doorway through which you go out and they come in.
Yeah.
And it is a focal point. All the trappings, all the tchotchkes that you put on them, that's for your benefit so that you can focus, or because you're just into the fawning and adoration of them, which I am. But Gloria's right, it can be a little napkin, but it's a sacred place that nothing else is used on. So as we've always said, the top of your bookcase is not a very good altar.
Well, for me, the top of my bookcases tend to become altars because then I don't put crap on them.
Oh, okay.
It's one way to keep clutter down for me. But this is something we will be offering, and you will be getting a notice on it. And I highly encourage you to attend, because the introduction class will be worth it, worth your time, worth your energy, simply by itself. And we're going to be keeping this a relatively modest price, and we want to do this sort of as it's not going to be announced to everybody. It's just going to be to the people who've been listening to these shows, because we want to try it out and we want to get some feedback on how it works. And, maybe there's some spaces, but this is like, she's written a 180-page book that goes with this, and it has 22 journeys, all of them recorded.
On MP3 files.
Yeah. So it's really something juicy. And it's something that I know you're going to want to be involved with. And so we'll be bringing that out. And we thought we were going to be bringing it out this next week. But with my husband and her sister and brother, we're sort of going, we're not so sure we can do that. You know, one of the things that happens when you're doing priestess work is life sometimes intrudes, and that's your work too. So I want people to realize that, you know, we're human. We have children, we have brothers, sisters, we have friends, and yes, and we really do have the opportunity to make a difference. And this is where this is why we're doing this show. So we encourage you to share this with your friends. And I'll be sending out the recording of this later. And any of you that missed anything, it's all recorded. So you can fast forward, you can look at it on YouTube, and it's going to be available. I'm not going to shut it away in the membership site. These are all going to be available. You know, I know that some of you want to order Raven's book and order them directly from her. And the easiest way to do that is at KathrynRavenwood.com. You can order them there, or you can do kravenwood@yahoo.com.
Not set up as my website isn't set up to do orders. You need to contact me directly.
Okay, so kravenwood@yahoo.com. We'll reach her immediately, and she'll be happy to send you a autographed copy of her beautiful book. And let's have a picture of that book one more time so people will know what we're talking about. Maybe they didn't come in until now. So yeah, it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful book, and you know, one of the best things is that it really was done well by the publisher. I mean, there's a color section in the middle. It's well printed on good paper. And one of the things we love about being with Inner Traditions is that they have given us an opportunity to really, really produce some excellent work. And we know that Goddess Inc. also produces excellent work, and we're working at providing Goddess Inc. with our materials because they're going to be selling them as well. But right now, the best way to get Raven's book is to order directly. Now, before we close, I do have to put a commercial in here for Raven. Raven is, without a doubt, and I have experienced everybody up to and including Mary Greer, who is the queen of Tarot's readings, as well as Jem Wanless and a number of others. Kathryn Ravenwood is the best Tarot reader in the world.
Thank you.
Bar none. Her ability.
Rare. I didn't tell her to say that.
Yes, I have. As I said, that is truly her. Yes, she is a gifted teacher and a gifted ceremonialist, but she is available for tarot readings, and she is offering $10 off for our program here, which frankly she's way underpriced, and if I can manage to get her to raise her price ever, you're not going to get her for this price again. Right now, with $10 off, your price is?
Well, I charge $60 for an hour, so $10 off, it's $50.
And she sends you a recording, because after you get done with it, you're going to have to listen to it again to hear all the wonderful things she's told you. And she has clients all over the world that come back to her year after year, month after month. So I have to say that, you know, for Raven, and this is a good portion of her income, so we want to support her in this. But at $50, she is an incredible bargain.
You only get one at $50.
Well, I know that. I know that, but still.
Okay. Right.
For a starter, fabulous. For ongoing, $60, fabulous. frankly, I know people who are charging $150 to $175 for a reading, and they do not hold a candle to her.
Thank you, Jen.
So anyway, thank you, Raven, for being present and being on the show and being so incredibly generous with your information.
Yeah.
And I want to invite all of you to attend next week, because next week we are going to have a new person that you've never seen before. Her name is Kimberly Moore, and she is the originator of, or I shouldn't say the originator, she currently is the high priestess of the Mother House of the Goddess, House of the Mother, which is a website out of Boca Raton, Florida, which is where she lives. And she's going to be on, and we're going to be talking about how she became a priestess, as well as everything else that's going on in her life. And she has a very large following, so we're going to be very excited to meet. And I'm also going to be on her Blog Talk Radio show this coming Saturday night, I believe. But, you know, we have Andrea Goodman, who is returning in September, as well as Reverend Ione, who will be here September 30th. And we also have Ruth Barrett coming.
Oh, good. Yay. Yay, Ruth.
Yes, and all of these will be individual interviews. So keep a watch on Facebook and on your email, because you'll get the notice as to when they are going to be on. But be sure to register. We have not figured out a way that we can just register you, short of hiring somebody in the Philippines or something, and I'm not up for that. So. But welcome to you tonight. Thank you again, Raven, for being present, and thank you for being my friend. I don't know what I would do without you.
I couldn't make it without you. I love you, and thank you to all of you who tuned in and listened tonight, to all of you who will be on later, and I truly send you my heartfelt blessings. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to talk to you and to share this. I always have to honor the guides, because this is their gift to us. This is not about me and my ego, or look how smart I am, or none of that. In fact, I have a hard time with a lot of it sometimes. It's like, really? You're telling me all this? Really? So I really want to honor the guides and all of my teachers who have taught me so much. And thank you, Gloria. You're the best friend and the best mentor and the best butt kicker around. Sacred butt kicker, of course. And thank you to all of you. Blessings. Blessings.
So thank you and good night, and we'll see you again next week. Same time, same channel.